Hi crafty friends, this is Joy with Create It with Joy. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's fun shark cards are made with products from My Favorite Things and Lawn Fawn. All of the products that I'm using are listed and linked below in the description and also on my blog. Now I do have to say I have a really unhealthy fascination with sharks. I'm absolutely terrified of them, but at the same time I cannot get enough of them. So making these cards were really just super fun. Now this is the baby shark die from My Favorite Things, and I've already die cut that off camera to save time, and I'm also going to be using the Sharky Sentiments from My Favorite Things. From Lawn Fawn, I'm using the duh-nuh stamp set and coordinating dies. So I die cut this off camera, and I'm using cardstock from Cardstock Warehouse. I'm using a red and I'm using a gray, and I will have that linked in the description. And I'm also using a white cardstock for the teeth. So I did a darker gray, then I did a lighter gray for the mouth section there, and then the white for the teeth. I was going to do a white for the mouth, but then the teeth wouldn't have stood out, and you just really need jaws to have some teeth. And while I was making these cards, I was watching Jaws 1, the first Jaws, because I'm absolutely obsessed with those movies, and I have to watch them every year to make it feel like summer to me. Something's wrong with me, you guys, I don't know, but I love it. So once I'm done gluing this shark together, I'm also going to glue another one together because I am making 3 cards, 2 with this die and 1 with the Lawn Fawn stamp. So again, after this is all done, I will glue the other one together. Now I'm going to glue the little black eyeballs on. You could skip this step and use like a black glaze pen. I'm gluing down these eyes and also using the black glaze pen. Now I have die cut out the word Jaws using Kraftgali's, what is this called? The uppercase letters essential alphabet dies. I have die cut 3 pieces for each letter out of red cardstock from Cardstock Warehouse, and I'm gluing those together, and I'm doing this so I can have dimension. You also could put foam tape behind it or use some fun foam behind it. I like to use cardstock most of the time because I like that solid color going all the way through. So now that those letters are done, I'm going to ink up the background for my first card. And I am using some Distress Oxide inks, and this is Peacock Feathers, Salty Ocean and Chipped Sapphire is what I'm going to be using for this card. So this is Salty Ocean, and then I'm going to add some Chipped Sapphire towards the bottom because I want it to have a really dark, feeling like you're in really deep ocean, so it kind of gives you a little bit of a cold chill when you look at the big shark in the really deep ocean. I was just going to freehand a line with my ink, but then it just wasn't looking good, so I added a little bit of low tack tape. I just am using some washi tape here. Adding a straight line and inking right up to that, I am using Tailored Expressions blender brushes. They blend absolutely beautifully. So here is the Chipped Sapphire. I'm going to blend that in nicely to the Salty Ocean until I get a really good saturated cardstock. I'm using Nina Classic Crest Solar White cardstock, 110 pound for this card. And I'm just going to keep blending back and forth with the colors till I get it looking seamless. And I loved how this looked when it was done. It definitely looked like you've got some lighter water and some deeper water. Really, really fantastic. Once that's done, I will peel back that piece of tape and it will show this nice, crisp, straight line across the top. Now that that's done, I'm going to ink up for my second card, and this is a Slimline card. The first card is A2 size card, and this is a Slimline card. I'm using a wave stencil from Lawn Fawn, and I'm starting at the bottom because, again, I want it to feel like it's got deep water. So I'm starting with the Chipped Sapphire, then I will go to Salty Ocean, and then I will go to Peacock Feathers. There are 4 stencils in this, 3 or 4, and I am using each side of each one just to give myself very different looking waves going all the way up this card. I did get a little bit of ink where I didn't want it, so I'm taking my Tombow Mono Eraser and just erasing that off, and it did a really, really good job. Now here is the Salty Ocean, and I am working my way up the whole length of this card, and then I actually decided to change it up a little bit once I saw the shark sitting on this cardstock. I decided I wanted to have his fin sticking out of the top of the waves, and so I'll show you how I achieved that look. Finishing it off with peacock feathers, but again, I'm going to be cutting this part off with a die cut, but I will add this color to the top of the die cut once that is finished. But doesn't that look really pretty? So this is where I've laid out my shark and decided, you know what, I want his fin to stick out. So I am using Lawn Fawn's Stitched Wave Borders, taking that about 3/4 of the way up or 2/3 of the way up, and I will run that through my die cut machine. And now I'm just going to ink that little top part of that wave with peacock feathers. So now the colors are Chipped Sapphire, a Salty Ocean, and then just one stripe of the peacock feathers. Just a little bit on that die cut edge. Now I'm working on my next Slimline card. I did 2 Slimline cards and 1 A2 size. Still using the same colors of Distress Oxide inks. I did want to keep it really quite simple. I am starting with peacock feathers at the top, then Salty Ocean, then Chipped Sapphire. This card is going to be the card that I am using the Lawn Fawn's duh-nuh stamp set, the cute little sharks in that. And I will color and die cut those. Again, just blending everything. I have a paper towel to make sure my fingers don't get into the ink and leave fingerprints. So I'm just going to ink away again till I get a really nice, beautiful transition that you just can't tell other than the color just gets lighter or darker. I'm almost there. We've almost achieved it. And doesn't that look really pretty? Now I am taking Honeybee Stamp's Ocean Scene Builder stencil and adding a little bit of what would look like light coming through the top with Ranger Ink's Glacier White ink pad. So it's just very light and subtle, but that's what I wanted. Then I'm going to take my Distress sprayer and just spritz that a little bit because we know that Distress Oxide inks react to water, and I just patted that off to get the rest of to dry it off. Now I'm going to color these sharks. I stamped 5 sharks. I actually ended up only using 3, but I really do like to make sure I stamp and color extra pieces because sometimes you don't have enough, and for me, I hate going back and having to do it again. So the Copic colors that I'm using for the top part of the shark are C4 and C6, and then I'm using T1 for underneath his belly. Super easy blending, keeping it super, super simple. I will color the rest of these off camera and also die cut them with the coordinating dies. This is Lawn Fawn's duh-nuh stamp set. And I just love these cutesy little sharks. They're so fun. Now that that's done, I am taking the speech bubble backdrop from Lawn Fawn, and I just die cut a ton of white speech bubbles. And I'm going to pick the ones that I want to use because I want each of these sharks to say duh-nuh. So just like in the movie Jaws, the sharks are actually going to be singing the theme song. So I'm just finding the ones that I like. I actually ended up having to change one of them out once I stamped the sentiments. But just kind of placing them in and around and seeing how I want them to go and the orientation of the sharks. And I wanted some of the sharks going off of the edges and another one to stay kind of in the center. And I'm just keeping the leftovers in with that die in its package. All right, let's get to adding the sentiments. So we're back to the first card. And from My Favorite Things, Sharky Sentiments, it's going to say, have a killer birthday. Now, all my ink is dry, which is really important, and I prepped my cardstock with an anti-static tool, inking it up with clear ink, and I'm going to be doing some white heat embossing. And I'm going to heat that through, and then you'll have this great sentiment at the top of this card. And I'm just cleaning off any little specks of white because I I mean, you never want that little extra pieces of embossing powder, but especially on this card when that blue ocean is so perfect, I don't want anything messing it up. So once that is done, I'm going to add my jaws, and doesn't he look creepy? I am going to add the jaws letters now, and I am using my T-ruler and lining up to make sure I glue everything straight. Most of the time I do eyeball things. This is not something that I feel confident in eyeballing at all because I am about 100% sure it would all be crooked. So using my T-ruler, lining up the letter jaws, just using some liquid glue to adhere that down. And you've got jaws, have a killer birthday. And isn't that really super cute? I've got some foam tape behind my shark, and I put that acrylic block on those letters just until they dry, and the liquid glue dries fairly quick. And I'm going to center him right down towards the bottom. And doesn't he look a little menacing in that really dark water? This card was a little kind of creepy to me. Probably doesn't help that I'm watching Jaws on TV, but you know. Now here is the black glaze pen that I'm adding to his eyes. A little bit of white gel pen on his nose for a small highlight. You could do more highlights, but I really wanted to leave him alone. This really is a fantastic die. I'm adding some glossy accents to his teeth because you just want to see his shiny chompers. I mean, this is supposed to be Jaws, and he needs to look a little scary, so, well, and he also has pearly whites, so we want to add to that. I am taking my tool-in-one from Spellbinders and just kind of cleaning up the edges and moving it around. This is my large glossy accents, and I don't have a fine tip on it. My smaller one does, but I couldn't find it, and I didn't feel like searching for it, so. But a fine tip applicator would work great and really get into all the little crevices, but this is just how I had to do it, and it works just fine. I definitely would say let this dry overnight before you tried putting this in an envelope or anything like that. Now that he is done, we're going to work on the next card. Again, this is a Slimline card. I'm going to glue this front panel to a Slimline card base, which is 8.5 by 3.5. Trimming off just a little bit of excess down there at the bottom. And we're going to add some foam tape to this shark as well, because we want this guy to have some dimension. Looks like he's just coming at you, almost like he's 3D off the page. I feel like that's what the other shark looked like on the Jaws card. This guy doesn't look quite as menacing, but you can see there he's got his fin hanging out of the water. I die cut some letters that say fin, and then I've got the sentiment that says fantastic, and I'm only going to die cut out the word tastic, or I'm sorry, stamp out the word tastic. Now for this word fin, I did not glue multiples of the letters together. I only did one letter because I did not want this to have dimension. I just wanted the shark to have dimension. Again, using my T-ruler to help make sure that everything is nice and straight. Now I'm taking some more red cardstock, and I'm going to mask off part of that sentiment that I don't want, because remember, I only want the word tastic because I already die cut the word fin from Kraftgali's uppercase letters. So I'm going to ink that up, stamp it with clear ink, and use a white embossing powder. I did prep my paper with an anti-static tool. Here's the white embossing powder, just cleaning up all the edges. I will heat that up and then trim that out. I'm just using my Tim Holtz paper trimmer. And then I will glue that down right next to the word fin. And none of the sentiments have dimension, which is really odd for me. Most of the time I do make my sentiments have dimension, but this one doesn't, and I think it turned out great. Now I'm going to stamp the other part of that sentiment. The whole sentiment says "you're fantastic," and so I'm going to stamp the word "your" right above. Again, I will do masking to mask the second part of the sentiment off, the same thing that I did before, and this time I'm going to stamp it directly on my card, which makes me ultra nervous because that was a lot of work. and my stamp didn't stick, and that was a little bit stressful. But I will be stamping it in black ink, intense black ink from Simon Says Stamp. Gonna line that up one more time. Stamp it, mask it off again, and again, just using black ink. Don't forget to take your masks off, and I know that sounds funny, but I have absolutely made that mistake and wondered what the heck just happened. And that turned out good. I needed to stamp it one more time. This is what is so fantastic about the Misty, thank goodness. Stamping it again, making sure everything's in place, and you've got that great sentiment. Now I'm taking small clear dewdrops from Honeybee Stamps and just putting those all around on the card. Want it to feel like little water droplets, because of course that's what they look like. And I think the look of that is a lot of fun. Adding my black glaze pen to the eyes. I am not adding glossy accents to the teeth on this shark because I don't feel like he needs it. And that card is done. Isn't that a cute card? He's way less menacing than that first shark. Something about the background changed up his smile. He doesn't look so creepy now. All right, guys, on to the last Slimline card. So here are those speech bubbles from Lawn Fawn, and I am stamping the words duh-nuh in lobster red ink. I wanted to have red on every single card because I am a little bit twisted when it comes to these shark shows and these shark movies. I just cannot get over it. And speaking of that, there is it's Shark Fest on Nat Geo is going on for like the next quite a few weeks, and I know somewhere in August it's Shark Week, and I just love those shows. I'm not sure if you guys are fans of that, but I love watching them. So now I'm going to glue all my little sharks. Like I said before, I want some of them hanging off of the card, and then I'll have the top one in the center. And these sharks are singing the theme song to Jaws as they're swimming around underwater. And honestly, this is a really super simple card. I just wanted it to be all about sharks. That's why I did not add any other fish, although you could and it would still be cute, but I really wanted to keep it all about the sharks. That's just what I was feeling, and so that's what I did. I put foam tape behind all of the sharks. I am gluing the little sentiments to just flat to the card, and I'm so sorry guys, I didn't record adding the sentiment towards the top, and it says today is going to be Jawsome from the Sharky Sentiments, and I white heat embossed that sentiment as well. I'm going to add some bubbles, and this is from the duh-nuh stamp set. I'm doing it with clear ink. I did already prep my paper with an anti-static tool because I'm going to be doing white heat embossing. I really couldn't do it before now because I didn't know exactly where my sharks were going to be. Normally, I really try to do my heat embossing before I glue stuff down. It doesn't always happen because sometimes I forget that's what I was going to do. But this time, this is how I had to do it. So adding the white heat embossing, I'm trying not to add too much to the cardstock because I don't want to have little pieces and specks here and there. So now that that is done, I'm going to heat that through. Make sure your heat gun is really hot before you take it to your paper. You do end up getting less warping, which is really, really nice, especially once your card is already put together. You've got all those cute little bubbles everywhere. I'm going to trim off those little excess pieces. And then you've got these cute, cute sharks. Adding my black glaze pen to the eyes, that adds just some detail, and then I will do my white gel pen to these sharks, and I'm adding a little bit more than I did to the other two sharks for sure. Just makes them look like they're kind of shiny, just in a few spots. I'm not overdoing it, but adding quite a bit. And that third shark card is done. And I just think it is really super cute. I love how all of these cards turned out. I had a lot of fun making these cards, and I really hope that you had a lot of fun watching me make these cards. Thank you guys so very much for stopping by. I really appreciate all of your support. If you like what you've seen, please subscribe, thumbs up, comment, and share with your crafty friends. I really appreciate it. I do have some affiliate links below. It costs you guys nothing to use, but it does continue to help me. So thank you again very much for using them. Again, I have everything listed and linked below in the description, and also the link to my blog is in the description. Thanks again. Bye.